Someone came to me and said, I'm using your book to help my clients because it really offers a positive, forward-focused message, which I know my clients need. And so I'm using my books for marketing. Would you mind if I, turn the back cover into basically a brochure, a business card for my business, knowing no one's going to throw away a business card? Can I do that? And I thought, yes, that sounds like a great idea, because more eyes on my books, more readers for my books, more people that I'm helping. I get to help the person who's purchased the book, custom printed the book. And so it's a win-win-win, right? A win for the reader, a win for my client, a win for me.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 198 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. In today's episode, I have a fantastic discussion with Honorée Corder. Honorée Corder is an executive and strategic book and publishing coach, TEDx speaker, and the author of more than 50 books, including You Must Write a Book. Additionally, she's the co-creator of the Miracle Morning book series with Hal Elrod. Honorée passionately helps business professionals and entrepreneurs write, publish, and monetize their books, boost their brands, and get much more business. She also runs the Empire Builders and the Collective Mastermind Group, does all sorts of other magical things, and her badassery is legendary. This is a phenomenal conversation with Honorée, and I'm so thrilled that I get to share it with you in this episode. But first, let's hear a word from this episode's sponsor, as well as a personal update and other introductory tidbits like that. This episode is sponsored by Findaway Voices. Findaway Voices is a platform that allows you to get your audiobooks into 43 retail and library channels and more coming soon, I'm sure, because they're always adding new platforms. Now, one of the platforms that they allow you to distribute to is Chirp, which is owned by BookBub, and the only way to get into Chirp is through Findaway Voices. Now, this is an update just recently came into my inbox this morning from Chirp. Did you know that Chirp users can now follow their favorite authors and audiobook narrators on Chirp? The more listeners an author has following them or their narrator on Chirp, the more effective their Chirp promotions can be. That's because whenever an audiobook deal is promoted on Chirp, both the author and the narrator's followers will automatically get a notification. To help authors and narrators get more Chirp followers, Chirp has created buttons and icon sets for use on their websites or blogs, and you can download them on the BookBub Partners blog, and there's instructions for how to use that, and that link will be in the show notes to this episode at starkreflections.ca. So if you want to see how you can leverage great platforms like Chirp or all the other great audio platforms available for you as an author, you should check out Findaway Voices, and you can do that over at starkreflections.ca/Findaway. And now a mixture of comments, personal updates, etc. Now, did you just hear, as I was doing the ad read for Findaway Voices, did you hear this sort of noise? That's because I'm at my standing desk, full of energy, and I talk with my hands a lot. Like, I think that's part of what I do. You're really missing the wild gestures and stuff that I'm doing as I'm talking. If anyone can see me looking in from the window on the street, they're probably wondering what's wrong with that man in the window. What's wrong with that man in the window? The one with the waggly arms. Anyways. Yeah, I apologize. It's really, really hard for me to clean. Whoops, that's not the right noise. There, that was the noise as I accidentally hit the pop filter on my microphone. Anyways, that was a bit of an aside. As I was listening back, I'm like, man, I can't remove that. I can't clean that up. And I didn't want to re-record it, so I thought, why not incorporate it into a little behind the scenes? Speaking of behind the scenes, last week's episode 197, The Darkness Within, was a difficult thing for me to share. And I just have to say, I need to say, I'm overwhelmed with gratitude at the response from you awesome listeners, from the awesome community of listeners I have. I took a bit of a chance, and I needed to get an episode out, and I thought, well, let's just record my way through this process, and I did. By the end of recording it, I did alleviate a huge bit of anxiety that was bothering me, and just, I guess, just saying, hey, I'm not going to be able to do a regular episode. I'm going to do it this way. I'm just going to share how I'm feeling. I'm going to share some of the darkness. And admittedly, that darkness lasted several days. Now, it wasn't, a deep depression. It was just this feeling like I can't do anything right, or I'm not going to get anything useful done. And I knew I had to ride it out and just kind of go with it and not be as productive. But the response from you listeners was, as I said, overwhelming, and I really, really appreciate hearing from so many people. And I'm going to mess up. I'm not going to remember all of the people who reached out or acknowledged or noted the how I was feeling and said, yeah, I understand. I feel the same way sometimes too. So thank you. There's Valerie, Julie, Joanna, Roland, Connor, Maddie, Alyssa, and so many more people. And my apologies if I didn't remember to acknowledge you, but I just heard from so many people who reached out either to check in on me, to let me know that I could call them. I even received a phone call from an author. Thank you so much. Texts as well, just reaching out. And oh my God, I'm just so gracious for the amazing people in the writing community who rally behind one another. It is like nothing else. I feel so loved. I feel so supported. And I just wanted to let you know how much I love you guys. I really, really appreciate that. I'm fine. I'm okay. I go through those moments all the time. I go through self-doubt, and I was just admitting to Sasha Black. So I'm going to have a story appear in her Rebel anthology, and I was really worried when I sent the story off to her that she wasn't going to like the story. And I just admitted to her the complete and utter imposter syndrome I faced, going, oh my God, I hope the story is good. I hope she likes it. And that happens all the time. I went through that with the release of Fear and Longing in Los Angeles. I put the novel out there, and I think it's a pretty decent book. I'm proud of the work that I did on the book, but there were elements of that book that bothered me, particularly because it wasn't the original vision I had for the novel. That it changed into something else, and it was almost too late to rework it or do anything about it. I had to just kind of ride it out and go with the flow, as Del Griffith says, like a twig on the shoulders of a mighty stream, from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, one of the best movies.
Just go with the flow.
Like a twig on the shoulders of a mighty stream.
But that's an aside. I went with the flow, and I have actually been overwhelmed and shocked when I actually see these reviews where people say, oh my God, this was great. I loved it, and I love the novel. And I'm thinking, well, of course, they must be thinking about a different author. They've got to be thinking about a different book. Nobody could love it that much. Are they some secret spy sent to try and make me feel good? And then I see them quoting actual scenes from the book or referencing scenes. I'm like, oh, well, maybe they're on some sort of medication, and they're actually like really high right now, and everything's awesome. That never goes away. It never goes away, that imposter syndrome. So, as creatives, we have these highs and lows, and I do just want to say, I'm rambling on, but I just am so overwhelmed with appreciation from just how amazing you folks are. Thank you so much for responding, for reaching out, for even sharing previous episodes and things that resonated with you. That's one of the reasons why we write. It's one of the reasons why I do this podcast. I mean, I do this podcast so I can keep learning and growing and sharing some of those learnings and reflections with you. But it's also that connection I can have with you, the listener, just like having a connection with a reader. That's gold. That's platinum. That is an amazing thing. And I feel so blessed and so rich to have you here listening. So in terms of personal updates, so just to kind of catch up on the darkness I was going through. So I ended up stopping working on Fright Nights Big City for a few days. I've been chewing on some things, and I've been doing some reading of some of the many black arts and occult books that I have. And I've been working, I'm spending the same time in the morning working on a nonfiction book, The Relaxed Author with Joanna. And it was kind of interesting because working on The Relaxed Author with Joe, now we are recording, we had a few sessions. Joe even reached out to say, are you going to be okay to do this, to chat about this? I'm like, no, this is important because I was in a dark place, which happens to creatives, right? We have these highs and lows. We have these imposter syndrome moments. And I thought that would be a really great place to create at least part of the book as we were talking through these things. And of course, hanging out with Joe is always an uplifting and amazing experience. Even when we're working, it's so much fun. And that's part of being a relaxed author, is focusing on those passion projects, which I'm giving away a little bit about the importance of having passion for what you're writing. But that process has been really an eye-opening and an awakening experience. And I know Joe and I are both going to share some insights as we move on further into the book. But it was really cool for me to kind of take the darkness and take where I was and take the frustration and the anxiety I was causing myself and leverage that to talk about in the next book. So it was kind of like I was actually leveraging, in martial arts, one of the keys is you leverage your opponent's momentum in a way that works for you. And I like to see in ways that maybe I was leveraging the momentum that my darkness, my internal downtrend, I was leveraging that in a way that worked for me. Last week, I recorded an episode of the podcast. I kind of opened the kimono. I exposed myself a little bit, and that was amazing. Honorée does talk about that in this interview, which is why I was thinking about that. And I found that when I do that in my nonfiction, when I do that in my fiction, when I do that here in the podcast, that's way more powerful and important for people to see or hear than the polished Mark who puts on a clean shirt and a sport coat and tries to look the professional part. Because I think that's an important element, is recognizing the humanity in other people. And I recognize and love the humanity that you, my awesome listeners, have shown me. So thank you to my listeners. Thanks also to the awesome patrons who support this podcast over at Stark Reflections, patreon.com/starkreflections. I should know the URL by now, but I do appreciate you guys listening and just want you to know how much that sense of community means to me. And that's really valuable. Everyone who reached out, love you guys. Thank you so much. If you didn't reach out, I still love you. I still love you because I know that sometimes reaching out is hard. It's hard to do. You don't want to intrude. You feel like you're, oh my God, I don't want to embarrass them or any of those things. But I know the love is out there. I feel the love and love you. So there, that is it for my rambling personal update for this episode. Let's jump into this fantastic and inspiring conversation with the awesome, engaging, and amazing Honorée Corder. Honorée, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast. Great to have you here.
I am so happy to be chatting with you today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is so exciting. And before we dig into, I really want to talk about prosperity for writers because that's a really important factor. But I want to get back to your background. I mean, you're a professional speaker. You've got all of these book projects out. You're helping writers. You're running this amazing business. Where did it all begin for you?
Oh, great question. 7-year answer. So I'll make it really quick. I actually was doing executive coaching and business coaching and speaking, and I met Mark Victor Hansen, who's the co-creator of the Chicken Soup series. And I just had a really interesting conversation with him where he asked me what I did. And when I proudly said, "Oh, I'm a coach and a speaker," he was thoroughly nonplussed, not impressed at all. And he just said, "Everybody's a coach and a speaker. You must write a book." And that really changed the trajectory of my life because that one statement made me think. In addition to that one statement, there were other pieces of the conversation, which were basically, if you want to differentiate yourself from others, you have to have a book, those sorts of things. And I took his advice, and I'm so glad that I did. So that's really how I started my writing journey, was taking his advice to differentiate myself from other coaches and speakers, to make
Wow.
myself the expert in that space. And then my coaching clients were very interested in this little, left I had made at Albuquerque, right? Like, "Oh, you wrote a book. Should I write a book too? What should I write a book about? Can you help me write a book?" And then, of course, here we are all these years later, but that's really where I started.
Wow. And what I'm fascinated about with your publishing is the partnership. Oh, the partnerships that
Yes.
you have, and not just one. Now, obviously, you started a series of books, and then you've even partnered with organizations for your books. Can you talk just a little bit about how you've done that? Because I mean, I find it so inspiring every time I go, "Oh my God, we got to be like more like Honorée."
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet. You're so kind. Well, so I've done co-authorships with people, but I've also along the way found people who say, "Look, I'm not a writer, but the contents of your book are very helpful for me in helping my clients.
Right.
The subject matter that you have um, explored in I'll use examples. The Successful Single Mom book series has been helpful for therapists, divorce coaches, and family practice attorneys, right? So back in the day, before I started helping people to write their own books to position themselves, when someone came to me and said, "I'm using your book to help my clients because it really offers a positive, forward focused message, which I know my clients need. And so I'm using my books for marketing. Would you mind if I, turn the back cover into basically a brochure, a business card for my business, knowing no one's going to throw away a business card? Can I do that?" And I thought, yes, that sounds like a great idea, because more eyes on my books, more readers for my books, more people that I'm helping. I get to help the person who's purchased the book, custom printed the book. And so it's a win-win-win, right? A win for the reader, a win for my client, a win for me. And so that's how that all started. And then I started to get intentional and purposeful. These are the contents of my books. This is the message that can help your clients. And so would you be interested in bulk buying for a bulk rate? And these are the benefits. And then because of my marketing mind, I then started including the marketing manual to go along with it. So don't just buy 1,000 books for me, or 5,000 or 10,000 books, but a book at rest is money at rest. We want your book to be in motion, because that's money in motion for you. That's helping your prospective clients, your current clients, and your future clients, helping to grow your business, all in this one small package.
So I have to pause because there's probably listeners who go, "Wait, did she just say 1,000, 5,000,
I
10,000?"
did. I
Thinking maybe I'll
did.
sell
Yes.
50 copies, maybe I'll sell 100.
Right.
So these
Sure.
are obviously some of the clients have actually had quite a bit of reach. Can you give an example? For example, I think I remember hearing an example you had used for the single writers. For I think it was a divorce lawyer or something like that. That you put some sort of text that's their text on the back of it's the exact same book.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
difference
The
is you've
exact
changed the
same
cover.
book. The exact same book. So it's an attorney that came to me, and he was, at the time, he was a more junior partner of his law firm and very aggressive in growing his practice. And divorce is one of those things where I can't say, how many years have you been married, Mark? It's time to trade her in for a younger model, right? So it's not like one of those things that you can create, like, oh, as a CPA, like, we got to file our taxes, so you're going to come to me and do that. No, when someone is going through a divorce, who they're looking to are their strategic partners. So what he
Right.
was doing was using my book to give to other professionals who served his prospective clients.
Right.
So when you are going through a divorce, you find your divorce attorney through a referral. So you're either asking your friends or you're asking the other professionals that served you, your business attorney, your CPA, your insurance provider, your banker, your estate planning attorney. And those were the clients that he served, people who were also working with those professionals. So he was leaving my books with those professionals, but he was also leaving them with his business card in Starbucks. He'd put his business card in Starbucks because he knew that women would go to Starbucks with their girlfriends and chit chat about their soon to be ex-husband, and they would find the book and then find his business card. But he realized there was an opportunity for the business card to fall out.
Right.
And so he said, if I buy enough books from you, I'd like to turn the back cover from sales copy to copy about my business. So a picture of him, the name of his law firm, a little bit about what they did, knowing that if you give someone a business card, what you could say is, here, would you throw this away for me? But no one's going to throw away a book. They're going to read it, or they're going to save it, or they're going to pass it on, or all of the above. And he was getting second and third referrals from the same book. So he recognized that it was a marketing opportunity for him to pay for the books, which I was happy to have a custom cover done for him.
Right.
And anyone in the publishing space understands that the back cover, that's just graphic design, right? So I connected my graphic designer to him and let him design that back cover, but the rest of the book remained the same. I was pretty adamant that I didn't want the text changing. I didn't want to get into creating all these new files, and the opportunity for catastrophe or calamity is exponentially greater the more things you change. So it was just the cover. So I would just change the back cover, print those books, have them shipped direct from the printer, and then he was able to use those books to market his business.
Wow. I love that idea because, yeah, that business card, somebody really valued the book. They found some value in it. They're probably going to pass it on to a friend.
Correct.
Or
Correct.
tell a friend to go get it, and then they buy their own version of it. But then
That's right.
that's that great ad that's fantastic. And you've done that with a number of different clients over the years, which I think is
Number of
amazing.
different clients, a number of different books. So
Yeah.
then I got a little inspired to start doing outbound marketing. He really did give me a gift of asking the question, would you mind terribly if I did this, and what would it cost for me to do it? And so I came up with a package. I went to my graphic designer and I said, what would it look like if we only did back covers and
Wow.
updated? And then I contacted a printer and said, okay, so I'm going to be doing these specific covers, same interior. What does that look like? What is the price break on bigger quantities? How quickly can you turn this around? Can you keep these files on file? So when they want to do reorders, which is, just a wonderful opportunity. So with some of my business books, with some of my, with the single mom books, with a couple of divorce books I've written, I've been able to reach out to different professionals and just say, would you like to buy between 1,000 and 1,000,000 copies? And this is what the sliding scale looks like. And
Wow.
And, I've not ever gotten to the 7-figure bulk sale rate, but I'm still young. So we'll see what happens.
Well, and
Yes.
and I think the thing that you've moved beyond, so print on demand, yeah, that's for minimal order quantities, but you've actually gone with either offset or other digital printing where you can actually get a significant decrease in per unit cost if you
Yes.
actually go with that.
Yes. Yeah. So they're paying more because they're buying more copies, and I'm paying less because I'm buying more copies. And so what's the word I'm looking for, Mark?
Margin?
The margin. Yes, thank you. The margin is greater the more copies that they buy. And so then what I did notice, and I mentioned this a little bit ago, is I noticed that they were getting them and giving a few out, but they were treating them like they were their favorite candy as opposed to a marketing asset. So I was like, you
Right.
don't get a box of business cards and then keep it in your drawer and look at it and think how pretty it is. You get those kids out on the street, right?
Of
So,
course.
so you got to get those books
Some of them
out.
go
And so
through the
I taught
washing
them.
machine, the dry cleaners, like
Exactly. It's like always have a book, always be giving your books away. But if you're wanting to do this, if you're an author and you're thinking, well, gosh, I have a book that's beneficial, that would be beneficial to a professional to give my books out because it's helpful to them, then you would give them 10 copies, and you would also then say, who are your favorite clients? Give those away. Who are your favorite strategic clients or strategic business partners, so they could give the books to their clients and send them to you. And I started getting them to think about what that would look like. It's like, give the books away, because they were always concerned with, can I recoup it? Can I recoup it? And I'm saying, you're looking at it differently. This is not little pieces of gold that you're giving away. And once it's gone, it's gone. You're giving away pieces of gold that are going to come back to you multiplied, because you think about the cost of a book is anywhere from 80 cents to maybe $3, depending on the size and number of pages and all those things. But if you give away a book that's $3 and someone brings in $1,000 or hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue into your business, if I told you you would give away something that's $3, that the hard cost is $3, and you would make $5,000 or $100,000, or in this case of this first attorney, his fees were, multi-million-dollar divorces are multi-$100,000 in attorney's fees. So he couldn't wait to give the books away. He was like, okay, let me go and put my books out there so that then the clients are coming in. And so that's thinking about it in a different way. It's abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset. It's like, how many books can I give away? Because the more books that are out there, the more people have name and face and brand recognition for me, and then are coming back to me. And then if you have other books, then like you said, they're going to recommend it to their friend. They don't have another book to give away. The client doesn't, but they can go to Amazon and order a copy of your book, or Barnes and Noble, or Apple, or Kobo, or wherever, right? Wherever they're going to get a book. And then you have more customers and more readers and more clients and so on and so forth.
And what I love about it is it's not just a business card. It's not just a billboard. It's not just a bus stop advertisement. It is content. You're giving them huge value that's going to benefit them, yes. Like not entertain them, but inform them and inspire them, yes. And help them learn something that's going to be hours and hours. So it's like this rich value. Of course, it's going to keep giving. So that kind of leads, because you already obviously have the mindset, but the prosperity for writers. So when did that come out, and was it born out of this type of experience with books and that?
Well, sort of. I think it all kind of goes together in my mind. I had attended a writers conference. It was a very small writers conference, about 24 people.
Wow.
And half of the room were prosperous writers. They were people who were full-time writers or on their way to being full-time writers and building a business. And the other half of the room were aspiring full-time writers that weren't quite there. And what I heard out of their minds was the thought that, oh, I'm not sure I could do it, or I'm not sure that it's a thing. Is it a thing? Do people make money from books? And I'm like, well, I'm making money from books. I don't know. I think it's a thing. I'm not really sure. And I was new to that type of a community. I had not found other self-published writers. I was living a little bit in a bubble where I did not have the understanding that there was an indie community yet. And so I wasn't looking for other people that were writing and publishing books by themselves, because I didn't know that there were any. I thought everybody really wanted to be a traditionally published author. And so I was a big fat loser in a way, because I wasn't validated by traditional publishing. Newsflash, you don't actually need that. But I didn't realize that. I was just kind of doing my own thing and having book ideas and was just learning a little bit here and there, and having these types of situations happen where the successful single mom found someone, and I was creating this whole empire, as it were. And so when I heard people say, I don't know that it can happen for me, I don't know that I could be a full-time writer, I don't know that I could make money from my writing, Well, in my work as a coach, that's where I worked with people that were professionals. They had the same mindset challenges, and that's what I worked with them to remove, is that limiting belief, or those limiting beliefs that were the ceiling that they were going to keep hitting until they changed those beliefs. And as a lark, or as a farce, I said, y'all, I'm going to do a class. I'm going to do a course, and it's going to be 4 weeks, and it was on freeconference.com, right? So I didn't even have like a Zoom call or anything. I was like, we're going to do a conference call, and I'm going to walk you through what you need to remove these beliefs as aspiring writers, so that you can become full-time prosperous writers. And I did the course before I wrote the book. So I think there were a dozen people or so that said, yeah, I'll pay you $200 to go through your course and to learn this. And the results started coming super fast, like within a week. So I did 4-week consecutive classes, one course, 4 weeks, and the results started happening very quickly. And some of those folks are still full-time prosperous writers to this day, and I stay in touch with them. And so then the book came out of that. Prosperity for Writers was the book that I wrote after that. And then there are 4 other books in that series that tackle some of the different problems or challenges that writers encounter.
Wow. Now you kind of hinted at this a little bit when you talked about that first group, but you do talk about the mental hurdles that writers have to overcome in order
Yeah,
to face
yeah,
prosperity.
yeah. Well, I think that even if someone is a really successful anything else, because we have the um, societal belief that there are starving artists, that we're starving writers, that is a badge that they have to wear. It's like, right? So it's like, maybe J.K. Rowling is going to make it big, or even our colleague Mark Dawson, who was just starting, a few years ago, who has now done very, very well. He was a very successful attorney in the UK, right? But I'm sure there was a moment for him. I'm not sure. I'm guessing there was a moment for him where he was like, can I really make the same amount of money I'm making as an attorney, as a writer, as he's writing on the train to and from work? And I think that that's everyone, because it is not commonplace for artists or writers to be prosperous. It seems to be, well, it's 1 in a million will become a star, 1 in a million will hit it big, 1 in a million, whatever, right? But there's actually a formula that goes into it. There's the formula of, you have to believe that you can do it, you have to believe you deserve it, you have to commit to it, and then you've got to actually put your butt in the chair. The thing about being successful with anything is you have to commit to your process, and you have to do it as a professional. As a professional, Mark, you and I can agree, right, that we have to do the things whether we want to do them or not do them, right? That's what is the difference between a hobbyist and a professional. And so I just, kind of help people to knock that down, knock down those pins, as it were, so that they can go from, I don't think that I can do that, I don't even think that's a thing, to, it's not only a thing, it's going to be my thing.
It sounds. I know you've mentioned it, but I want to dig into this a little bit more. A phrase I've
Sure.
heard you use is that commitment versus interest.
Yeah.
So that seems to be is that one of the hurdles, or is that part of the whole process?
I think, yeah, it can be very romantic to think that you're going to drink whiskey and smoke cigars, and you're going to be the great American novelist. I think that that's lovely and wonderful, and also maybe perhaps, a smidge of fiction. I haven't found that to be true. I mean, I had to give up whiskey and cigars in order to be a professional and start getting up at the same time every day and putting in the time every day. And that commitment that applies to being that successful professional, anything else also applies to being a professional writer. To being successful in any endeavor requires the ugly middle. So there's the exciting beginning when you're super psyched about it and you're telling everyone, and then there's when you publish your book, that's super exciting and everybody's excited for you. And then there's the ugly middle where you're like, I don't know if I really want to do this. Am I really committed to doing this? Am I going to do the work that it takes to do this? And if you talk to any professional in any profession, they will tell you there's a lot of unsexy, unexciting, whiskey-free work that goes into the process.
Wow. No, I wanna explore this a little bit because you're obviously a very passionate, very creative, energetic person. But I do know that you keep that passion on a specific path. Like you've got a very regimented and organized business
Mhm.
mindset. How do you play that balance between the Honorée who's got the ideas and wants to go with them, and then the Honorée who is a very smart businesswoman?
Thank you. Well, the Honorée is creative, is bossed around by the Honorée who's a businesswoman quite a bit. My boss is very bossy.
She takes the whiskey away from you and all.
No whiskey, no whiskey. I have learned to engineer myself, which I think might be a helpful conversation for us to have. I have learned to foil myself.
Really?
Um, yes, because I am, I have some years and some mileage, and so I don't have to if I don't want to, right? So the
Okay.
the 7-year-old in me is like, I don't have to do that. I can eat the cheesecake and skip the workout, except then my pants don't fit. I don't know. So so I've learned that tomorrow, so let's add some more honorees to the mix. That today's honoree wants chocolate cake and a nap. Tomorrow's honoree wants to buy a new car. So I
It's
don't
an
want to
expensive
upset
cake.
her. I don't want to upset her. Right. And so I think about, will the person I am tomorrow be proud of the decisions that I made today? And will that person benefit from what my choices that I make today? Or will I be really disappointed in the choice that I made today when I wake up tomorrow? And so
Okay.
I try to put enough fun in there and enough um, recharge time. And I'm a big proponent of not working all the time and having lots of time for creativity and spending time in quiet. And when someone calls me and they say, I'm so stressed out because I'm doing all these things, I'm like, stop everything you're doing and go take a nap, hydrate. And they're like, what do you mean? You don't nap or hydrate? I'm like, oh, but I do. Right. I get 8 hours of sleep a night. And if I can squeeze it in and a little nap in the middle of the day, just so that I can stay rested, because I think we are most creative and most productive when we are rested, hydrated, exercised, meditated, and connected. And we get stressed when we don't have, and did I say fed? Fed is very important. Food is very important. And so when you don't have all of those things, you aren't the best you can be, certainly not creative. And as writers, we have to be creative. That's the whole game right there. We can't write the same story that we wrote before. We can't just rely on that. The book from 20 years ago doesn't do it, right? We have to keep producing and keep creating. And so you have to be your best self. So in order for me to be my best self, I have to do all of those things in order to be my best self. And also I have to write the words. And also I have to do the marketing. And I also have to prospect, present, and follow up, et cetera, and so on and so forth. And I'm just basically in the ugly middle all the time. And I've gotten comfortable and excited about that. Because I just wake up every day and I'm like, I could be a bricklayer. I could have a job. I and I'm pretty unemployable, so that wouldn't go well. Wouldn't go well for any honoree that you've mentioned.
Is that it sounds like a self-care, or in terms of, do you say, okay, I am making sure I have my weekends off because I need that time to do
Yes.
personal stuff. I need that time to just daydream, or whatever it is. Is that
Yes.
that's just as important as a scheduled workday?
Yes, absolutely. So I have time when I'm regimented or following a schedule, which sounds awful. But I do think that the schedule sets you free. Deciding what I'm going to do and when allows me to not worry about it.
Okay.
And then following that schedule, not perfectly, we're all human, right? But if I miss a day, I don't miss 2 days. If I miss 2 days, I don't miss 3 days. And if I miss 3 days because life happens, sick, whatever, then I just begin again. I just press the reset button, dust myself off, and go, I can't change anything about yesterday, but I can make my choices for today and going forward.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. That is fantastic. I'm reminded of the Miracle Morning for Writers, which is, one of the series that you've been involved
Yes.
in.
Yes.
What was the basic principle of that?
So the basic principle of that is that the Miracle Morning for Writers is based on the Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, which is the original book from which the series came. The practices of the most successful people in the world are the lifesavers, which was named by Hal: silence or meditation, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and then scribing, which is journaling, right? So if you do the lifesavers every day, Hal decided at a rock bottom point in his life that he was going to look up, well, what do successful people do? And he found these 6 strategies that were not practiced by all the people. Like some people would say, meditation is my ticket to ride, or if I go for a 20-minute walk and I exercise, I get my blood pumping. And Hal was just like, well, I'm going to do all 6 of them. So he did, and he wrote the Miracle Morning. And then I met, blessedly so, Steve Scott, or S.J. Scott, who is a prolific writer as well. And so we all came together to write the Miracle Morning for Writers, which combines the success strategies of the most successful people in general with the principles of the most successful writers. And primarily among those are treating it like it's a business. Once it's no longer a hobby, once it's no longer something you're meaning to do, well, a professional shows up for work every day or most days on a schedule and puts in the work and produces the content and publishes it and markets it, rinse and repeat.
Cool. So speaking of schedule, speaking of putting in the work, you've recommended for writers 15-minute sprint sessions, which is obviously, okay, I've got 15 minutes, no distractions, I'm just going to write what I can. Where did the 15 minutes come from, and how did you arrive at that?
So I'm good friends with my author buddy Brian Meeks, and we talk and talk and talk. And we were like, we should write a book together. And I said that would be nifty. And he said, oh, I love the word nifty. And if you know Brian, he's just a delightful human. And we were talking about the fact that people will say, I don't have time to write. And I would say, you always have 15 minutes. So you always have 15 minutes. It doesn't matter if you're the mom of 7 children and you're working 3 jobs, although maybe not. Maybe that person doesn't have 15 minutes.
Not in a row.
Not in a row. You have 90 seconds, right? 12 words, go. But for the most part, you can find 15 minutes, even if you have to leave for work 15 minutes early, or you have to come home 15 minutes early, or you go and take some of your lunch break, or you write on your phone. I know one of my author friends writes 1,000 words a day, and sometimes some of them are on the golf course. He just has his notes app and he's writing with his thumbs, and he writes 3 books a year, 1,000 words a day. Just 15 minutes. He's like, I just bang it out, and that's where the story is that's going on in my head. And he gets on with his day, and I have kids and I have, a lifestyle and I want to keep it. And that's his strategy. So we wrote the Nifty 15, writing your book in 15 minutes a day, just to give people strategies for typing it or dictating it, or, whatever, however you're going to get it down, doing some pre-work maybe another time, or maybe that's all you get. But if you put in 15 minutes a day and you just focus on your story or your nonfiction, whatever that looks like, you're going to make more progress than if you do 0 minutes. And I have found my minimum word count I can do in 15 minutes is about 250 words. So even if I'm only writing 250 words, I'm writing 1,000 words every 4 days. And I only need between 30 and 80,000 words, depending on the type of book, fiction or nonfiction, that I'm writing. And so a little bit at a time, I'm going to get there. Even if my life is completely crazy and I'm booked from morning until night, I can find 15 minutes to sneak away, hiding in a closet or in my car or whatever, to get those words in. And so that was the premise behind that book, was just to really encourage people to read a short book that would encourage them to find the time to write those words.
I
I
love
spent 15 minutes describing the book you could have written.
I could have written, we could have each written 250 words.
That's right. My apologies, everyone.
No, but I love that because you're dividing it into manageable chunks and
Yeah.
not saying, okay, I know a book is, shorter, 30,000, 80,000 words.
Yep.
I'm not going to stress out the big picture. I'm
Nope.
just going to get these done in pieces in a balanced way, obviously, because you're not
Yes.
neglecting other things. You're just fitting it in.
No, and there's no need. There's no need. I think in some people's minds, they think I'm going to go write my book. I'm going to take a sabbatical, or I'm going to go to Bali for 2 weeks and I'm going to write my entire book. And I have heard that story over and over and over. People who are like, someday I'm going to have a chunk of time that I'm uninterrupted and I'm going to be able to write my book. And I think to myself, okay, you let me know. You let me know when that is, because I've never seen that happen. Very rarely people will take a whole year off, a sabbatical, and then they find that their time is filled up. We just had a whole year where we were stuck at home, and there are still people that are like, oh, I meant to write my book. That would have been a really good time.
Right.
And a lot of people have taken advantage. Like, if I'm ever going to learn that language or write that book or do that thing, it's going to be right now while I'm not doing all the other things.
Wow.
Depends on mindset, really.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. I want to, as we're getting close to the end, I wanted to ask you if, with all the experience and all of the people you've helped, all the clients, all the authors, all of the companies you work with, what's something that you did not expect in your new lifestyle when, before that Mark Victor Hansen conversation, where that was the pivot for you when you moved into the book realm and this whole new world that you've built? What's something you didn't expect would come along the way with that?
Any of this whatsoever. I wrote a book because Mark Victor Hansen said so, and I had no long-term vision or purpose or goals based on that. He just said, you must write a book. And I said, okay, it's Mark Victor Hansen. He said I had to write a book. I didn't have any idea all of the things that would come from it, but I did take his advice. He did say, do 7 things every day to market your book. So once the book was done, I did do 7 things every day, which book marketing in 2004, 5, 6, 7 is different than book marketing in 21, 22, 23, 24, right? It's
Right.
just what we're doing now to talk about our books and to get the word out about our books. The fundamentals are the same, but the actual tactics are different. The strategies are the same. The tactics are some the same and some different. I did not expect that I wouldn't be doing business and executive coaching, that I would do strategic book coaching, where people come to me because they don't want to go traditional publishing, but they don't want to self-publish by themselves because they know that there's probably a lot that they don't know. So I didn't expect to become a consultant in that way. And I never expected anyone to read my books. I mean, that's like the main thing is the first book I wrote and sold a lot of copies, but I didn't really think anyone was going to read it. And then The Successful Single Mom, I really wrote from a raw place. I didn't expect anyone to ever read it. So I wrote from a really raw place, which actually taught me that that's the way to do it, is to go open kimono and to talk about what's the real stuff, because people like that and they connect better than if you're like, no, everything's totally fine. What do you mean? Right? So the more authentic that I have been in my writing, the more readers have liked it, and it's helped people, which was very hard for me to become comfortable with, because people were like, oh, I read your story, and I'm like, oh dear. Oh, good. How was that for you? That was something unexpected, that it actually worked to my benefit, not having the expectation that other people would read my writing. And then I don't get too much in my head about it even today. I'm always honored that someone would take their time, their most precious asset, to watch an interview like this or to read a book that I have written. I find that to be fascinating and very cool. And that, I guess that's the most unexpected thing.
Excellent. So authors who may be interested in going to your website, checking you out, what specific services are you most aligned with? For like, what kinds of authors would be the ones that would go, yes, this is a really good match?
Non aspiring nonfiction authors. I have a course that I teach that walks them through the process from blank page to marketing their book.
So
And then I
taking
have
their
another.
expertise,
Yeah,
and then how
taking
to,
their
okay.
expertise. Yeah, and saying, I want to be a coach, speaker, author, right? And so they're a coach and a speaker like I was, but they want that next level of recognition. Or I work with a number of people that are coming out of some other profession. So I'm working right now with a woman who is a Navy aviator, a woman, one of the first Navy aviators, graduated from the Naval Academy, all the years in the service, and is a professional speaker. And so she needs that book, right? You got to have a book in the back of the room, but she doesn't know what to do or where to start or who to follow. So she's taking my course. I help people in that way. And then some people just hire me to do it for them. So there are different levels of things. And then in between there is a course called Building $1 Million Book Business. And that's for nonfiction authors who have published their books and they don't know how to do the bulk sales, or to launch a speaking business, or to launch a course, or to launch a coaching business. And so I walk them through the different things that I've done and give them the tools and the strategies and the ideas and the prosperous thinking, right? That allows that to happen, allows them to create their own space in the world, so they don't have to get a job either.
So, well, okay. So where can my listeners find out more about you and check out some of these services and links to your books and all that?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for asking. HonoreeCorder.com is the place to start.
Awesome. I'll have links
Yeah.
to your website, etc., in the show notes. Honorée, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today. Really had a great time and learned a lot.
I can't believe we're done. It went by so fast. It's so fun. Always to connect with you. Thank you so much.
There are so many things from this conversation that inspired me as a writer and gave me ideas that I wanted to talk about. I mean, you've got the attitude of hard work, the hobbyist versus a professional. You've got the mental hurdles that writers face. You've got the importance of downtime, but I want to focus on something that happened while I was editing this. So I'm sitting at my desk with a big screen, my sit-down desk. I'm editing, making some notes in a little notepad. That's just sort of how I make my notes about the things that we talked about. And then we got to a certain point where she was talking about reaching out to businesses and stuff like that. And I stopped the interview. I got up, grabbed a whiteboard marker, and I wrote on my whiteboard, Ghost Walk book, one story, ad for the group. And I wrote Kingston, Ottawa, etc. And I realized, so I've licensed the rights to several of my books to Dundurn, Canada's largest independent publisher. And they own all the rights to that, but I still have the research that went into the writing of those books. So while the actual chapters and everything are locked up, I still have access to those chapters. So what I can do is I can use the research to kind of rewrite some stuff, or even add new material. Haunted Hamilton, for example, was published in, 2012. So there's new stories that I can research and add in. And anyways, what I was going to do is take something small, maybe 10,000 words, something like that, as an example or sample of some of the stories. Maybe it's a medley of different tales, like sort of like a medley song, not the full song, but just kind of a medley. And put that together with a unique cover, and then have a chapter in the back of the book that is an ad for the Ghost Walk group, the local Ghost Walk group. And there's going to be different ones in Hamilton, Montreal, Toronto, Kingston, Ottawa. Well, Ghost Walks of Toronto, Kingston, Ottawa, because there's the 3 different Ghost Walks. I would probably just put a page each for each of the cities that they do, and a little bit about the company. Now, you may remember I interviewed Jim Dean a few episodes back. about the ghost walks and how they did inspire me into wanting to write about true ghost stories. But I was thinking, okay, I can use something like draft to digital print. I can make, it has to be, I think, a minimum of 70 pages and relatively inexpensive to produce. And I'll do the back cover as a definitely a complete ad for that ghost walk group, and then content inside the book that's an ad. And maybe I'll make 5 or 10 copies and just mail them to them and say, hey, love what you guys do. I created these because I think it's a great souvenir. I know, for example, a lot of people will buy my book Creepy Capital when they finish a ghost walk book in Ottawa. And I know that the Ghost Walk group sells my book at their gift shop. I mean, they have their own. Their founder has a book of ghost stories of Ottawa, but they also sell mine because they're very collaborative in that team spirit. And just send them to them sort of as a thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you for, all of these different groups allowed me access to their research and stories. And I do acknowledge them in those books. But then, obviously have a list of saying these are some books by Mark Leslie, published by Dundurn that are available. I do actually have a couple self-published books coming out in that vein. I keep putting them on the back burner because there's no deadline, there's no commitment with a contract. But I got Screaming Skulls and another book I'm going to be co-authoring with writer friend Carol Weeks, amazing horror author, Ghostly Gananoque, and so I was looking at just doing that and sending it to them. Maybe they can just use them. Maybe they give them away. Maybe they'd be interested in ordering some. And so again, I'm not necessarily using it to try to sell these books, but to use these as really wonderful souvenir giveaways that advertise the businesses in question. And see if something like that could be useful. Because then I could potentially, if they were interested, sell them at just a few pennies above cost, so I'm not losing money on them. But then that way they have a really great product that I've worked hard to produce, and they can make them available to people. And maybe they do sell them, maybe they give them away, maybe they use them in different formats, maybe they mail them out to whatever. The whole idea is, I know who the target audience is for these books. I know where the people are going to be. What can I do to provide a valuable icon or souvenir for those people? And maybe that can turn into... Now, here's the challenge, of course, with traditional publishing is I just cashed my check from Dundurn for sales from 2020. Yes, this is the end of June 2021, and I just got my check. And there's still 30% withholding against earnings because of returns and just the way the book industry works. So this is not going to be a quick cash thing. This is going to be a long-term author building, business building, brand building for myself as a writer of true ghost stories. And I have noticed that there are people who start off reading my books from Dundurn who then go on to read my Canadian werewolf books or some of my other books because they like what I do and they may be also interested in that kind of fiction. So again, I'm not looking at it as a quick buck. I'm going to do this and it's suddenly going to be this magical thing. But it's definitely a long-term exercise that I'm going to experiment with. And so I'll let you guys know how that goes. But anyways, I mean, that's just one of the brilliant, I think it's a brilliant idea, but that was just one of the ideas that came from re-listening to this interview with Honorée Corder. I'm curious, what ideas did you get from the things that she said? Feel free to leave your own reflections over at starkreflections.ca for episode 198 or any episode of the podcast. Always love to hear what you guys are thinking, the things that maybe inspired you along the way. So thank you, dear listener, for inspiring me. I hope you found this awesome interview with Honorée Corder inspiring. I hope you enjoyed the Stark Reflections. If you like this podcast, feel free to leave a review on the podcatcher of your choice. That's a great way to help other people to find it. Speaking of helping other people find it, one of the things you can do is you can share this podcast with a friend that you think would find value in these Stark Reflections. So thanks again for listening. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Until next week and next episode, Here's wishing you great writing and good Stark Reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.